Oh, I thought you were heckling. Good morning, and welcome to the Wichita State University Weekly Briefing. I'm Tracy Freese, Director of Communication for Industry and Defense Programs. These briefings are held in an effort to keep the campus and public better informed about the progress occurring at Wichita State. Following today's briefing and the featured topic, there will be a time for questions. Wichita State recently announced the recipients of the Harry Gore Memorial Scholarships and the Linwood Sexton Scholar. M.J. Jakes of Topeka High School, Rebecca Crable of Northeast High School in Fort Smith, Arkansas, and Vivian Lee of Wichita East High School are the recipients of the Gore Scholarships. Each student will receive a $64,000 scholarship to attend Wichita State. Jakes plans to study aerospace engineering, Crable biomedical engineering, and Lee wants to attend medical school. Edward Avila is the 2020 Linwood Sexton Scholar. Avila, from Liberal High School, plans to major in education and will receive a full scholarship to Wichita State. Wichita State has requested approval from the Kansas Board of Regents to purchase the privately owned on-campus apartment complexes, the Flats, and the Suites. As President Jay Golden discussed with Wichita State's shared governance leadership. In light of the apparent need for long-term student housing, Wichita State evaluated the cost savings of a purchase and requested approval to pursue the purchase for a price of $49 million before bond financing costs. Benefits of the purchase also include exclusive control over occupancy, control over housing pricing, and the ability to renovate or expand as desired. The WU signal light is a play on the bat signal and will be used to call attention to Wichita State events and locations. The WU Shift Space team will test it on First Friday, tomorrow, February 7 from 6 to 9 p.m. at the new Wichita State Shift Space location at Groover Labs at 334 North St. Francis. The Sandbox Soup exhibit of student art installation takes place on Friday. Wichita State will hold a ribbon cutting and open house for Phase 5 at X Stadium on Friday. The ceremony will take place from 2:30 to 3 p.m. for donors of the project, and then will open to the public for tours and an open house from 3 to 5 p.m. Phase 5, located on the third base of X Stadium, includes a new 10,000 square foot performance facility that features a strength and conditioning center, 2 athletic training rooms, locker room, offices for coaches and staff, and a ticket office. Wichita State students, faculty, staff, and partners are invited to pitch their early startups for the Rise of the Rest road trip, which will visit Wichita on April 20. Former AOL Chairman and CEO Steve Case is leading the nationwide effort to invest with entrepreneurs in emerging startup ecosystems. Case, who worked in Wichita with Pizza Hut in the early 1980s, will visit with his team to meet with entrepreneurs, startup support organizers, and other stakeholders in the local innovation economy. 8 local founders will pitch their startups for the opportunity to win a $100,000 investment from Revolution's Rise of the Rest seed fund. The deadline to apply is Monday, February 24. The application can be found at revolution.com/apply. Nearly 50% of all Wichita State students identify as first generation, meaning neither their parent nor guardian has earned a bachelor's degree. Our 50-plus year history of working with this student population through the TRIO and Gear Up programs has evolved into a campus-wide effort to recruit, retain, and graduate first-generation students at unprecedented rates. In the summer of 2018, the First Gen Coordinating Council was created to effort leverage resources and expertise to improve service delivery. And now I'd like to introduce our featured speaker, First Gen Coordination Council Chair, Kay Monk Morgan.
Good morning. Thank you, Tracy, for the introduction. It's a pleasure to be with you this morning to share with you a little bit about the work that's happening here at Wichita State University in support of our first-gen students on campus. I'm really good at clickers or not. As most of you probably are aware, I'm going the wrong way. Wichita State, part of our mission is to be an economic driver for the South Central region, the state of Kansas. In this particular role, we're heavily aware of income inequality and the tie between income inequality and bachelor's degree attainment. The chart that is before you really is a visual that demonstrates that only 13% of the students that identify as having salaries or income, or only 13% of bachelor's degrees are actually provided to folks who are in poverty or living in impoverished situations or circumstances. We, as an economic driver, we want to ensure that not only are we providing economic ability for our populations to move within the social economic ladder, but we understand and know that that is best done by educational attainment. And so we have a long history, as Tracy mentioned, of working with first-generation college students in our community. We have several programs on our campus that do community outreach through both our high schools, working with workforce development centers, targeting both our high school and middle school students as well as returning adult students. And so as a part of that work, we have done a lot of work creating what we're referring to as our First Gen Coordinating Council. The council was brought together, as Tracy mentioned, the summer of 2018, really to focus on how we were allocating resources, what services were being provided, and how they were being delivered in a way to increase both the retention and the graduation of the students that we have on campus. And so we did some work on creating a profile and found that, like most other campuses that are working to serve students who identify as first generation, there's an income gap between the students that identify as first gen versus those that are continuing generation students. As a part of creating our profile, we learned that the primary student that we're serving happens to be a white woman who's a returning adult student living in Sedgwick County. And ultimately, 73% of our students meet that particular population. That statistic, that was a surprise to most of the folks on campus, including myself, who've been engaged in this work for quite some time, when we learned that the student that we've been trying to provide resources for was not the student who we needed to really engage with. And so now that we've established that profile and we've started sharing that with our campus community, it's impacting how we're providing our services, which was the goal of the work. We mentioned that the population of first-gen students at Wichita State has increased significantly over years. This chart walks you through kind of the increase starting with 2006, going all the way over. Our fall 2019 numbers are almost the exact same. And so what we know is that the number of our first-gen students are increasing, some of that as a result of economic opportunities that are available for students to move up in their career ladder, some of it as a result of the changing demographic of students all over the state of Kansas. And so we certainly want to be positioned to ensure that when students choose us, that they know that we are committed to their actual graduation and retainment. 46.7% of students, or 47.6% of students are first generation, and of that number, 74% identify as being returning adult students. Again, really did a good job of helping us to better understand how our services needed to be delivered and when and why. Because the traditional age student, while certainly we are interested in providing those services, we know that we needed to do a better job for providing services for our returning adults. So the First Gen Coordinating Council is comprised of about 20 folks from all over campus. We have a faculty member that represents each one of the academic units. There is a director for each one of our academic and co-curricular units who has a specific mission to serve first-gen students, whether those are returning adult students, whether those are TRIO eligible students, whether those are STEM students. Our College of Engineering actually even has a first-gen program. And so as first-gen services proliferate across our campus and we're being more intentional about service delivery, our council continues to increase. We have 4 subcommittees that work across 4 different areas. We have a pre-college sector that works with recruitment of these particular students, making sure that our messaging is on point, that our service delivery to students who are trying to come to college, whether that's helping with FAFSA completion or application completion, transitioning from secondary to post-secondary. So we look at those issues as well as systems on campus in order to facilitate educational opportunity for our students who are coming in, both at the adult learner level and our traditional age student. We have a group of faculty and staff who work on research projects. Their job is primarily to pull data and to evaluate whether or not the things that we're doing on campus are actually making a difference. Can we see a blip or change in retention efforts as a result of a particular program? Are there persistence factors that we could identify as a campus community where we could do a better job? Where are we seeing success for our students? And so we have that particular team that does research. We have a committee that works, or a subcommittee rather, that works specifically with faculty and staff engagement, making sure that the faculty and staff on campus are aware of our student population, that they're engaged in providing services to our students, and that we're doing the best that we can to create best practice around being the best in the state and maybe even the country at doing this particular type of work. And then the last committee is the marketing committee, and that committee works with our strategic communications office and making sure that we're sharing the good news about success for our students. One of their target projects is the National Celebration of First Gen Students. That's November 8th. That's I think now in its 3rd year, where we put together activities supporting first gen students on this campus, celebrating those students and what it is that they bring to our campus to make it a more rich environment. We've had quite a bit of success in the last year and a half in being able to impact both resource allocation and policy as it reflects or impacts the students that we are researching. We're in the process right now of doing a cohort study, a qualitative study in partnership with the College of Applied Studies, to learn more about the experience that our first-gen student population is having on campus, again in an effort to ensure that we're doing the things that we can do and those things that are removing barriers, if there are any, that will help ensure that our students will be successful. And so excited about that study. We're hosting on tomorrow 50 of our first-gen, we call them forerunners, here on campus, folks that either identify as being a first-generation college student themselves when they were in school, and or folks who are supporters of first-gen students. We're doing some tabletop exercises with our entire campus community to bring folks together to talk about how we can, as a campus community, continue to elevate both the messaging of welcome to the students that we serve and the service delivery to graduate our students. There is a difference. We're seeking parity in our graduation rates between our first-gen and our non-first-gen students. We've got about a 10% gap in that area, and so we're really intentional on being able to close that gap. We're seeing considerable progress just based on the work that we've done so far. Bringing folks together to talk about what their best practices are and how we can continue to support students and maybe even do it in different way is the goal of the council. We work across the university, which is kind of a goal that we have. Actually, it's not kind of a goal. It's the explicit goal is to work across offices. So you'll have student affairs, you'll have strategic communications, all of our academic units, all coming together towards one goal and coordinating those efforts in a way that we've not done over the 50-year time that we've been serving students in this way. And so I've listed, just for your information, the goals of the council. We certainly want to improve the awareness of the presence of these students and the needs of our first-gen population here at Wichita State, encouraging our faculty and staff to become engaged in a way that is meaningful, both in the classroom and in their co-curricular activities. We want to create a culture of welcome. We want every student to feel like Wichita State is their home, and that they feel like this is a space that was created for them. And then we also we are focused on the feel-good part, but we also want to be engaged in meaningful review of both policies and our practices. We want to identify any barriers to this student population to ensure that as stewards of the mission of the state of Kansas and the Kansas Board of Regents, that we are educating our populace so that we can, Wichita State, really fully live into the vision and mission of our institution to be an educational, economic, and cultural driver. With that, I will pause for questions. Seeing none, I'll turn it back over to Tracy, and she will conclude our activity this morning.
At this time, I'll take any questions on today's topics or any other questions you may have. For those I'm unable to answer, please follow up with Mr. Joe Kleinsasser. If there are no questions, I'd like to close by reminding you of Wichita State's vision to be internationally recognized as the model for applied learning and research, and our mission to be an essential educational, cultural, and economic driver for Kansas and the greater public good. Thank you for coming to today's briefing. The next briefing will be at 10 a.m. next Thursday, February 13, in the Radigan Student Center.